Coach Stefanski, you've been leading this team since I arrived. And honestly, Kevin Stefanski seems hell-bent on making sure Shedeur Sanders doesn't become the hero. He's pulled out every trick in the book this entire season to keep Shedeur from shining. Kevin Stefanski is overflowing with, well, let's just say he's the kind of coach who tears down player confidence instead of building it up. We're talking straight-up sabotage here, and it keeps happening. Our relationship has definitely grown, Shedeur says when asked. But you've got to wonder, how does that make him feel, really? It's like Stefanski told him, I'll do whatever it takes to keep you out of the limelight. You got us close to glory, but you're not stealing my spotlight. Not happening on my watch. So yeah, I'm just grateful to be here. Shedeur adds quietly. You've got to be kidding me. The Cleveland Browns just went through one of the most uncomfortable and revealing moments in recent NFL history, and hardly anyone noticed it happening live. Head coach Kevin Stefanski, the guy sitting right in the middle of the nastiest quarterback mess of the 2025 season, walked up to the microphone and delivered what sure sounded like an apology, even though he never actually said, I'm sorry. As Shedeur heads into this final game, his last start for you guys, I know we've already asked this, but what are your thoughts on him as you... Yeah, obviously I can only speak to this game, Mary Kay. And right there, in that moment, Stefanski practically admitted he screwed up Shedeur Sanders' rookie year. The timing made it even more painful, dropping just 24 hours before what many think could be Sanders' final start in Cleveland and possibly Stefanski's last press conference as head coach. This isn't some internet rumor or locker room gossip. This is straight from the team's official media session. The video's out there for everyone to watch. The same coach who kept Sanders away from first-team practice reps. The same guy accused of spreading sketchy stories about the rookie's preparation and meeting attendance. The same coach who picked Dillon Gabriel over a first-round quarterback talent stood there in front of cameras and quietly backtracked without really owning up to anything. Either Kevin Stefanski thinks Shedeur Sanders is complete garbage, or he just flat out doesn't like the kid. This is textbook destroy a player's confidence 101. He must have some serious dirt on Jimmy Haslam or something, because I've never witnessed anything quite like this. I don't even know who the backup is anymore. Listen, players in that locker room who like Shedeur, after hearing that comment, they're done with Kevin Stefanski. They're completely done because you're actively trying to crush this man's confidence. Shedeur, I don't know him personally, but he seems incredibly confident. These kinds of statements make you start thinking, maybe I'm not that good after all. The NFL thrives on pride and ego. Coaches almost never own up to their mistakes, especially mid-season, and especially when it involves a high-profile draft pick. What Stefanski did during that Week 18 preview press conference crossed a line that usually doesn't get crossed. To really understand how things got this bad, you need to look at how the Shedeur Sanders situation in Cleveland went sideways from the very beginning. From the second the Browns drafted him, questions swirled about whether the coaching staff actually believed in him or whether ownership and the front office forced the pick to shake things up. The evidence supporting that theory has been piling up ever since draft day. I'm going to keep saying this until people get it. Kevin Stefanski did not want Shedeur Sanders. Wouldn't have wanted him even in the 5th round. Shedeur Sanders, widely considered one of the most NFL-ready quarterback prospects in years, got shut out of first-team practice reps with zero explanation. This wasn't some careful development plan where a veteran mentors the rookie. This looked like deliberate isolation, plain and simple. Things got even more toxic when anonymous insiders started feeding negative stories about Sanders to the media. Reports started popping up claiming he wasn't prepared for meetings, seemed checked out in team sessions, and lacked the maturity and work ethic needed at the pro level. Those stories didn't feel random at all. They felt calculated, carefully planted to shape public opinion and justify why the coaching staff refused to play him. Anyone who followed Sanders at Colorado knew these claims were nonsense. In college, this guy played through serious injuries, carried an entire program on his shoulders, and handled constant media pressure without breaking. He demonstrated leadership, toughness, and professionalism every single step of the way. The idea that he suddenly became lazy the moment he landed in Cleveland, it makes zero sense. Then, the Dylan Gabriel situation pushed everything over the edge. When injuries and terrible play finally forced the Browns to make a change at quarterback, Kevin Stefanski still avoided Sanders. Instead of turning to his first-round pick, he handed opportunities to Gabriel, a quarterback with way less draft value and a much lower ceiling. The message from Kevin Stefanski couldn't have been colder. He seemed more willing to lose with literally anyone else under center than give Shedeur Sanders a real shot to prove himself. This went way beyond normal coaching decisions and crossed into something that felt deeply personal. It looked like a coach so obsessed with defending his original evaluation that he was ready to tank the season and possibly his own career, just to avoid admitting he got it wrong. Only when the situation became completely impossible to ignore did things finally shift. Fan frustration reached a breaking point. Media voices stopped dancing around the issue and started directly calling out Stefanski's decision-making. With pressure mounting from every direction, Sanders finally got inserted into the starting lineup. Once he hit the field, Sanders immediately showed why he'd been viewed as a top quarterback prospect. He flashed serious arm strength, pocket awareness, leadership, and mental toughness. He made throws and extended plays in ways no other quarterback on the roster could match. For the first time in years, Cleveland had a quarterback who could actually swing games instead of just surviving them. Sanders helped lead the Browns to victories, including a statement win over division rival Pittsburgh, a defense notorious for eating young quarterbacks alive. That performance alone changed the whole conversation around the team. What made it even more impressive was the context. Sanders got thrown into action with almost no first-team preparation. He played behind an offensive line that had struggled all season and worked with a receiving corps that lacked consistent playmakers. Even with all those obstacles, the results spoke for themselves. He wasn't just okay or serviceable. He was legitimately good, showing the same qualities that made him so highly regarded coming out of college. He extended plays with his legs, fired passes into tight windows, and stayed cool under pressure way beyond what you'd expect for his experience level. Most telling of all, Sanders performed while knowing the coaching staff had been working against him for months. The mental strength required to succeed in that environment is rare. A lot of young quarterbacks would have crumbled under that level of dysfunction. Despite all the internal politics and quiet resistance, Shedeur Sanders still found a way to perform. Which brings us to the press conference that made people stop in their tracks. This happened just 24 hours before what many expect to be Sanders' final start of the season and possibly his last appearance in a Cleveland Browns uniform. What happens outside the building isn't really in my control, not in my power. So I don't feel like I can go out there and tell him to do whatever. That's not something I can control or do. But overall, I'm just happy to be here. Coach, to the fans, you've been coaching since I got here, and we've been doing a great job with everything going on, both on and off the field. We've definitely grown. Our relationship and everything has grown, so I'm just thankful to be here. Kevin Stefanski stepped up for his routine Week 18 media session, but what followed was anything but routine. What unfolded is already getting dissected across NFL circles, either as a rare moment of honesty from a head coach or a last-minute attempt to save face before consequences hit. When asked directly about Sanders and his development, Stefanski skipped the usual empty phrases about patience and process. Instead, he offered something that sounded like a quiet walkback of months of decisions. I'm looking forward to him continuing to build on all the good things we're doing. And there are areas of improvement that he's working very hard on, that we're working very hard on, but continuing to put your team in position to win football games. He talked about seeing progress from Sanders and wanting that progress to continue. He mentioned the work being done in practices and meetings. He emphasized how rewarding it is when players respond to coaching and instruction. Then came the part that changed everything. Stefanski pointed out Sanders' eagerness to improve and highlighted visible growth in every one of his starts. Those comments carried way more weight than they seemed on the surface. If Sanders is eager to improve, that completely undercuts the narrative painting him as disengaged or unprepared. If he's taking coaching and improving with each start, that raises serious questions about why he wasn't given earlier opportunities. And if the staff has been working closely with him in meetings and practices, that directly contradicts the stories leaked about his behavior behind closed doors. Without saying it outright, Stefanski signaled that Sanders was never the problem. Kevin Stefanski didn't stop there. He went out of his way to praise Shedeur Sanders for beating Pittsburgh and framed it as a crucial moment for a young quarterback to earn a win against a division rival. He acknowledged how brutal AFC North games can be and made it clear he was impressed with how Sanders handled that challenge. This is the same coach who just weeks earlier was giving Dillon Gabriel chances ahead of Sanders. The same coach who blocked Sanders from first-team reps and ran an organization that allowed damaging stories about the rookie's work ethic and preparation to leak out. Now the tone has completely flipped. Now there's pride. Now there's recognition of Sanders' talent and competitive fire. The timing of that shift says everything. What stood out even more was how Stefanski addressed Sanders' mistakes. He noted that one interception came down to bad luck and suggested another was a learning moment. That's a head coach providing context and backing his quarterback instead of using errors as justification to bench him. That kind of support was nowhere to be found earlier in the season. There was no patience when Sanders was on the outside looking in. There was no grace while narratives about his readiness spread unchecked. The reason feels obvious. Stefanski didn't want Sanders to succeed. He wanted validation for his original evaluation, whether that meant believing Sanders wasn't ready or that he didn't fit the system. The most revealing part of the press conference, though, wasn't what Stefanski said, but what he chose to leave unsaid. Kevin Stefanski left the most important questions unanswered. He never explained why Shedeur Sanders was kept away from first-team reps. He avoided addressing the negative stories about Sanders' preparation that surfaced earlier in the season. He offered no real justification for giving Dillon Gabriel opportunities ahead of a more talented quarterback. There was also no clear development plan presented that could explain how Sanders was handled as a rookie. That silence carried more weight than anything he said. Stefanski knows this situation spiraled out of control. He understands that the football world sees the mistakes clearly. He also knows his job security has taken a serious hit, largely because of how badly the Sanders situation was managed. This press conference felt less like routine media availability and more like an attempt to reshape his legacy before the consequences arrive. The timing only adds another layer. Around the league, reports have surfaced suggesting Stefanski is coaching for his job, and that ownership has grown tired of the team's stagnant results despite heavy investment in talent. Expectations were sky-high entering the season, with playoff talk and championship dreams filling the air. Instead, Cleveland is closing the year as one of the league's biggest letdowns. Another season of their competitive window has slipped away. Analysts and insiders have consistently pointed to the mishandling of the quarterback position as the main reason the Browns failed to meet expectations. Stefanski's refusal to commit to Sanders, even while other options struggled, cost the team multiple winnable games and likely killed any real playoff shot. That decision now hangs over everything. The focus now shifts to what comes next for both men. League sources indicate that Stefanski is expected to get fired shortly after the season ends. Personnel decisions, particularly with people at the top of an organization, are always difficult, and I can tell you, having made a lot of these over the years, that this was as difficult as any we've ever had to make. The Browns are believed to be searching for a head coach capable of developing young quarterbacks and making smart, forward-thinking personnel decisions. For Shedeur Sanders, the outcome is far more complicated and carries real weight for his future. He showed clear NFL-level ability once he finally got on the field, but he did it within a broken environment led by a coaching staff that worked against him instead of supporting him. That reality now hangs over every decision Cleveland has to make. The big question is whether the next regime sees Sanders as someone to build around, or we're glad to have you. Are we taking care of you? You need anything? Let's play 10, 12 plays well, right? All right. Good to see you, man. Hey guys, Jimmy, good to see you all. Because a lot of things happen behind the curtain that people aren't privy to. And I'm proud of his endurance, his understanding. You can't control a lot of things that happen. But he learned a lot as a young man. He had to do what he had to do, and he made it through the storms. And I'm proud of him, man. As a father, I'm proud because I know, the NFL just witnessed something nobody saw coming. And the shockwaves are ripping straight through the league. While most fans were locked into playoff races and the usual coaching carousel rumors, something way bigger was quietly unfolding behind the scenes in Cleveland. And it caught the entire NFL off guard. According to multiple league whispers, the Cleveland Browns are exploring a move so aggressive, so unprecedented, that front offices across the NFL are scrambling to understand it. This isn't some routine coaching rumor that fades in a news cycle. This is the kind of decision that forces owners, general managers, and agents to rethink how the league operates. The report centers around a massive offer being discussed for Deion Sanders, an offer that would place him among the highest paid coaches in NFL history. And this isn't just about money or star power. It's about one clear objective: reuniting Coach Prime with his son, Shedeur Sanders, and attempting to build something long-term and transformational in Cleveland. I think we do, but this is the NFL, and if anybody understands how hard it is to win, it's us, okay? Because we've got a long way to go in terms of being a consistent winner. Do we feel good about our roster, our quarterback, and our staff? We do, but things happen. Injuries, situations change. I think you all know we have an extremely difficult schedule this year. If I'm a fan, our home schedule is unbelievable. If you care who wins and loses the game, it's tough. So are we comfortable with... I don't even want to say comfortable. We've made a lot of progress. Still have progress to make together is probably a better way to say it. I know you said this situation represents a fundamental shift in how NFL teams may approach leadership, quarterback development, and legacy-driven culture. For decades, teams have avoided mixing family with football at this level, but Cleveland appears willing to flip that entire mindset on its head, and it all traces back to what happened on the field last Sunday. The Browns were once again locked into a tight game, trying to squeeze something positive out of yet another frustrating season. Early in the game, starting quarterback Dillon Gabriel took a heavy hit and was immediately placed into concussion protocol, forcing Cleveland to turn to the bench with no warning. That's when Shedeur Sanders, the fifth-round rookie who had been waiting quietly for his opportunity, was suddenly called into action. No warm-up plan, no extended prep, just straight into the fire for his first real NFL snaps. Across the football world, people stopped scrolling and started watching. This wasn't just another backup entering a game. This was the professional debut of Coach Prime's son, stepping into the spotlight under maximum pressure. At the same time, Deion Sanders was in Boulder, Colorado, running a youth football clinic. When word reached him that his son was about to enter an NFL game, the moment hit harder than anyone expected. This wasn't the confident, unshakable Coach Prime fans are used to seeing on television. According to Deion himself, the emotion completely took over. He cried. His eldest son, Deion Jr., called him yelling with excitement, overwhelmed by the moment, while Coach Prime could barely speak. Later, Deion admitted he had to tell his son to give him space because he couldn't calm himself down. That raw reaction said everything. This wasn't just a proud father moment. This was the culmination of years of sacrifice, planning, setbacks, and belief finally colliding in one instant. Deion Sanders knows exactly what it takes to succeed at the highest level. He lived it, won championships, earned Super Bowl rings, and carved out a Hall of Fame career. Now he was watching his son take his very first steps on that same unforgiving path. Personnel decisions, particularly with people at the top of an organization, are always difficult, and I can tell you, having made a lot of these over the years, that this was as difficult as any we've ever had to make. The Browns are believed to be searching for a head coach capable of developing young quarterbacks and making smart, forward-thinking personnel decisions. For Shedeur Sanders, the outcome is far more complicated and carries real weight for his future. He showed clear NFL-level ability once he finally got on the field, but he did it within a broken environment led by a coaching staff that worked against him instead of supporting him. That reality now hangs over every decision Cleveland has to make. The big question is whether the next regime sees Sanders as someone to build around, or, on the field, Shedeur Sanders would be the first to admit the stat line wasn't pretty. He completed just 4 passes and threw an interception as Baltimore's defense brought relentless pressure. But the numbers don't tell the full story. Despite the chaos, Shedeur stayed composed. He showed awareness against NFL defensive schemes, stood tall in the pocket, and never looked rattled by the moment. For a 5th-round rookie thrown into a hostile environment with zero preparation, simply holding his ground mattered. Yet what happened during that game wasn't the most important development. Behind closed doors inside the Browns front office, conversations were unfolding that could change the direction of the franchise entirely.